Dermansky. I'm a photojournalist who's also an environmental writer. I'm based outside of New Orleans, and I'm originally from the New York area. I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm just covering all things related to climate change.
Okay. And I contacted you because your work on the Port Arthur situation, and you went down there, and I've been covering there's a dump in East Cleveland here in Ohio, and we've been fighting it for several years. We protested against it. 108-year-old lady died. It might be invited because it was right in her backyard. We filmed a 60-foot debris that created all of this dust literally right in her backyard. I'm saying if you open her door and walk 20 feet, it's right there, a big 5-acre pile of debris. So we've been covering this dump, and I'm just trying to reach out to let people see that these things are not just an isolated issue, and they occur. And you being the expert and having more knowledge and experience with this than me, I figured you would be great to.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but
Okay.
I definitely have a little bit of experience going around them. And what I'm finding is, the temporary ones that pop up after a megastorm, that's what I've been looking at. But I mean, it's all connected. The first thing I'd say is nothing that takes any material that should be in a dump should be near where people live. I mean, it's just crazy. And the way we have regulations in general, who's regulating what?
Now, can you describe the situation in Port Arthur?
Well, in Port Arthur, the dump that I reported on, it's pretty much a positive story in a way, because it had a happy ending, which is very unusual. And that had to do something with Hilton Kelly, who's an environmental activist and leader in that community. And right after Harvey, some people still hadn't gotten back into their houses, and suddenly the city set up a dump literally right across the street from where an African American community is. And the mayor actually had the audacity, whether it was true or not, it's still audacious to say he didn't know anyone lived there, which is just mind-boggling to me. Port Arthur isn't all that big a city, if you're the mayor. But anyway, so they start dumping, and Hilton thought he got it shut down. He called some council people, and then it wasn't shut down. So he went out there, and they tried to block it, and the mayor kind of said, well, this is what we have to do. And they went on with it, but Hilton kept the pressure on, and myself and other people wrote about it. I know Al Jazeera did a story on it, and all kinds of local media. And I kept going back. And I finally, I wrote about a woman who pretty much got up and left. She had children. She's a nurse. She knew that stuff wasn't good for her kids' asthma. She and her husband became refugees after the storm, even though their house was fine. They got jobs in San Antonio, which is real sad. They have relatives that they were leaving that they checked in on. You know how small communities are. You check in on people you care about, but then when you're not there, they have nobody. That's what was going on. It's literally, you're less than 100 feet away. You have these dust plumes going up. I talked to the state regulators, and they admitted they had no trouble answering my questions. They admitted there's no testing going on. It's like you say there's no problem, then there's no problem. Well, I don't buy that. And if you don't test, you can't say with certainty one way or the other, but you could see the dust flying up. And as Hilton Kelly said, if it's not toxic, why are people dumping it? If you're going to clear out everything out of your house, and all those houses down there near refineries. So who knows what was in the floodwater? It wasn't just rain. It was all kinds of stuff. It gets all over the stuff in your house.
Well, a lot of the material was molded.
Oh, let's put it this way, none of the material wasn't molded.
Okay.
So the smell was just horrible. And down south here, we have 80, 90, 100 degrees temperature. That's what it was like. I mean, it was really hot. 80, forget it. I don't even know why I threw that number out, maybe because it finally got cold here now. But Yeah, the stench was just horrible. Everything was moldy. So there's mold spores. No kidding. I mean, they're mold spores. And so they're flying around. People are breathing them in. And this was a neighborhood that wasn't even impacted. And then here this is happening to them. And right on the other side of the dump is a refinery, Valero refinery. So these people are getting hit every which way. Unconscionable, you know, what these people have to endure with their air quality. Crazy.
It was very similar to our situation here, where the workers that worked on the dump site, they didn't receive any protective gear. And
exactly.
I'm told that the workers in Port Arthur, they didn't receive any as well.
Well, you can see that on the video on, I write for Desmog blog. And my stories, also the same stories, are cross-posted usually on Truth Out. And I posted video of that. You can see them. They never are. And it kind of gives the illusion that there's no danger. And people only find out about the danger later when they have cancer or emphysema or whatever else that is connected to these things. The city didn't deny that there could possibly be asbestos being dumped there. It was everything you'd rip out of your house if you gutted things down. You know, so anything that was under your kitchen sink. We have all kinds of toxic stuff floating around in our homes. You know, some people don't even think about it. And it was all going back there. And then, you know, what about all your medicine? Then maybe it does rain, it gets in the water ditches that all flood up. It's bad news. You don't put that across the street from where people live. And they did the same thing in Baton Rouge, not directly across from where people live, but less than a quarter mile. You know, so same thing.
And it's the story that we're dealing with is mind-boggling how it hasn't received national attention. And you're saying Al Jazeera covered the story there, but I didn't really hear about it until I went searching for similar issues. Why do you feel that these issues are not really, like, we know Flint, everybody knows Flint, but it's like these issues are not really getting the attention they deserve. Why do you think that is?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is a different conversation altogether that I can throw out there at you, because it's just our reality. Our reality with mainstream media, in my view, like Bernie Sanders says, is there's only room for two stories. And one of them's Trump every day. And then the other one is whatever plane crash or whatever hurricane. And that's the end of the story right there. You know, so we have that issue and we're looking at media run by corporations. It's entertainment, you know, so it's not even that someone is saying your story doesn't matter, your story isn't important. Rather, that's what I meant to say. Is that they don't care. They fill their news block, and that's that. Now, is a dump sexy? No. So, you know, I mean, another place you want to look, you want to find a similar story, Sandy, after Sandy, they're still having issues in New Jersey. And, you know, there's money connected. That's the only sexy element, if you really want to get a story told, is if someone's going to take the time and do some digging. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I just wanted to say this. I didn't mean to cut you off. When we were marching for the dump, the mayor, he marched with us, but it was only to his office, which was on the route to where we were going. But our march, because I've covered police marches, the Tamir Rice March here in Cleveland, and different things like that. Our march to the dump, it took about an hour and a half when it really should have taken no more than 30 minutes for the walk, because we were being stopped at every street. And they were even the feds and FBI in their big tinted window trucks. Yeah, and we're like, well, this isn't even a march against the police. Like, I've done those. And this march against the dump was more hostile than any march I've ever done against the police. And I think it leads to what you were saying about the money.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a perfect starting point, is to follow the money there. You know, who owns that land? Is that city land or just the city's paying?
I think it's owned by the I think they paid $125,000 for the land, and of the land bank people.
So basically the city bought it? Oh, I'm sorry.
The owner of the site, I think he purchased the land from the land bank people.
Well, because yeah, if you track those things, then you can kind of find the answer sometime of what's going on. But that is bizarre that they would be so upset about that. It would indicate to me there's something fishy going on that someone wants covered up.
Yeah, it wasn't no F the police and Black Lives Matter. We're in the middle of the street. You know, it was a nice. We were on the sidewalk and on the edge of the sidewalk, and it's like I almost got arrested for walking off the sidewalk. It was crazy.
Well, again, though, it gets off topic what I'm about to throw out here, but it's just my observations covering things like that. Being down here in New Orleans, there's a lot of money, it seems to me, being wasted on private security and intel, spying on you, spying on me, checking Facebook. So what happens is they'll like, I don't know who they're paying to monitor social media, but every now and then I'll get some kind of tip or a job even to go cover something. And I look at what's happening and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't even get out of bed for that. You know? You see 35 people say they're coming, and yet then there'll be 100 officers. It's like someone's giving someone bad intel. So it could be as simple as that. You know, it could be.
Well, that was actually a real big issue here during the RNC, because the RNC was here and they were saying that the FBI was meeting people in bars and saying, "Hey, are you going to that protest?" Or, "Hey, did you hear about that?" So it's all.
Well, I mean, you know, that's they definitely, and then if they find the one person who's mentally unstable or kind of immature, who doesn't have any friends, they can kind of set something in motion that wouldn't have happened. I mean, that's our history here in the country. If you look at some of that stuff, it's really sad. But yeah, right. Nothing happened during the RNC. I didn't go. I was glad because I didn't have to say, man, I should have gone to the RNC.
I was there the entire time. And it was the most deadliest week in Cleveland. I think like 12 people had died that week because, you know, a lot of the security, even our own security, was downtown. There were people from all over the country as far as police. So I don't want to get too much off topic, but
yeah, but it's interesting though when you see something different, you know, you do something, you stand up, you fight back to bring attention, not to destroy stuff, to get the story out. And a protest is a really intelligent way to get people to pay attention. There's no question about it. And then that happens. Sure, it makes you wonder, well, who doesn't want to see that? Who doesn't want other people to know about this?
The local news was not there. I filmed the march, but the news media, nobody showed up.
What day was it? See, those are the kind of questions I asked too.
It was like late September.
No, but was it on a weekend?
I don't know. See, but I have the date. I can send you the video to see the date.
People, they don't understand what's happening within the media, so they get paranoid as far as, oh, well, they don't cover our community or they don't do this and that. And I say, well, what day? And they say, oh, it was on Saturday. And I laugh because I say, well, the weekends.
Oh, no, it was definitely on a weekend.
Crew. They have skeleton crews. So, you know, they have even less like stuff to fill and they don't want any. So if you do it too late in the evening or later on, they don't want to send people out because they have to mix that thing up. So sometimes if you're doing something to bring attention, you actually really have to figure out what works for your media.
Yeah,
and it shouldn't be like that.
These people, they've been doing it for like 30 years. So they usually either high noon or during rush hour traffic. And it's never
they know what they're doing then. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that's really crazy because, you know, you do have great visuals. I mean, that fire was just awful. When I watched your video when you asked me to come on the show, and I couldn't. They should have, in my view, they should have paid to evacuate people and let them stay in hotels, you know, given them that option. I know most people don't want to leave their homes, and there's good reason not to leave your home because, you know, then you have properties that can be, you know, burglarized, vandalized when no one's around. But, you know, if you already have an asthmatic problem or a child or the elderly, it's the elderly and the kids that it impacts them. You can't stick around with a fire like that.
But see, this fire was a week before the mayoral election, the election. You know, we just had the election. So it was like the mayor, the current mayor, he voted to approve the dump. He took credit for closing down the dump, even though that's preposterous. And he said the dump is safe. Even as it was burning, they said they're running tests and that it's safe. Now, I called the people who said they were testing it. He did a video. He was standing with the Board of Health people on both sides. I called the Board of Health people. They said it's burning 70% wood. So in another video, I said wood burning is toxic. The mayor in London is trying to ban wood burning stoves. And you're saying that it's 70% wood with a little bit of lead burning.
A little bit of lead?
Safe. Yeah, and it's safe. And it can really drive you crazy because you're like, this is obviously bad and dangerous, but it's like nobody really cares. I don't know.
I know. And I mean, you know, the thing too is, shouldn't someone have been fined for something? Wasn't that a nuisance? That's the lowest level, is a nuisance.
Well, the sheriff, I think the Ohio Attorney General raided the office. Like the second or third day it started burning. So it's so bad. And it's like, I don't know, man.
Well, it's great you brought some attention. I mean, it sounds like it was on the process of getting moved out and it's gone now. It's horrible. People had to suffer through the burning of that. That's just horrible.
Yeah, it burned for 6 days. And then I caught some black smoke.
That's worse.
And I covered a video a week before it caught on fire because a resident came to me. He said, hey, they got some tires out here.
Yeah.
And it's illegal to scrap tires. And if these tires catch on fire and this dump catches on fire, it's going to be bad. And I put the video out a week before the dump caught on fire. Then it catches on fire and I see black smoke. I'm like, that black smoke is probably a tire. And I'm talking to the guy in the Board of Health. I recorded the conversation, put the video out. And I'm like, could that be tires? And he's like, well, there may be some tires here and there over there. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
do you know who will have the results of the air quality tests? Will the community ever get at? Because that's stuff you could put in a Freedom of Information Act for if the city or the state paid for those tests.
Yeah, I told them to send me, because this is what I did. I called them. I said, can you give me the results? I don't want like, oh, we say it's good. Oh, we say it's bad. Yeah. Give me the numbers, what you tested. And he just, well, I'm going to read you this letter. And the letter says that we didn't find anything and it were safe levels and this and that. And so
that's not the results of a test. That
it's not.
Like a letter. You need to get the result, but you can get them. You just have to, send whatever office. I don't know if that was the health department. It's probably
Cuyahoga County Board of Health.
Yeah, send them a Freedom of Information Act request. I mean, citizens can do it, journalists can do it. You're a journalist, so you put that down. They have to, there's usually, and it'll be right on their website, a period of time that they have to answer you to tell you they've received it. And they'll have to provide that to you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why I called him. I thought he would, but
just give it to you. Nah, they make you work for that.
Yeah, because once he told me it was 70% burning wood, that took a lot because they were trying to, you know how they do. We'll call back and speak to this person, give you the runaround. But in that same video, I said that there's studies that came out. I don't know if you've seen them. That came out in September and June of this year that even at safe EPA levels, the pollution is still life-threatening. So there's really no safe level.
Some stuff there's no safe level. You are correct. There's just stuff that and then it, especially if you live nearby, the more if you go and you film it, right, for maybe 20 minutes or so, all right, maybe you'll get a headache or something.
Yeah.
That I'm not too worried about. But if you live there, even if you leave for work, you come home, you're sleeping and you're breathing that in day, that's a different story. So for someone to say there's no limit, I mean, that no health consequence, it's easy to say, but that doesn't make it true,
And it's like, there's really no defense for that, because I think they would say, well, we don't want to scare the people.
That's correct.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more afraid if they have a terminal illness because of this or something.
And what about the workers? I always wonder about that. I covered the BP oil spill, and there they forbid them from wearing respirators because they wanted to keep that storyline that it was safe and it wasn't a problem. But, you'll almost never see people with proper gear until they hire a crew. When they subcontract it out, sometimes you'll see it, but almost never. Almost never. Definitely not at the dumps.
Yeah. So I spoke about my dump. I want to shine light on the Port Arthur dump too, because I don't want to make it all
like I said, Hilton Kelly, he just did such a great job getting the word out that the second story I did, because I went a couple of times, but the last story I did, and I focused on this one family that moved because they knew better than to fight. I mean, fighting sounds good, but what good does fighting do when you have a kid with asthma? The smarter thing is to leave. And so they did, and I wrote about that, and sure enough, a week later, that dump, it closed. No one was told it was going to close, but I was told that dump could get a new permit and that could go into the next year. But it was a staging ground dump. I don't know what the dump you were dealing with. After the 1,000-year flood in Baton Rouge, that was a different story. There were some temporary dump sites, but then they went to some sites that were more permanent, but then they're bringing all this smelly stuff, and it's always unwelcome. If it's bad, you don't want it to be worse. You have all these different situations where terrible things with just traffic alone. So your kids are outside playing and there are these trucks barreling down the road. These contractors get paid by the truckload. So you open up all kinds of problems, and then who's going to pay for the holes in the road, or then you're living there, you get a flat tire from some flying debris that's suddenly on the street. It's just a mess, and the people were not consulted. But cities get away with it because they say, oh, it's temporary, it has to be somewhere. Well, I don't think so. In
rural areas, aren't there? That's where really all the landfills are, in the rural outskirts, right?
Well, usually, but in cities, they put these dumps near lower income, primarily African American communities after storms. You can see it over and over again. And places basically have to have a contingency plan. We're living in an era of climate change, extreme weather. If you're in local politics, or even just a citizen, go to a city council meeting and ask them, well, what's going to happen if we get that 40 inches of rain here? Do you guys have a plan of what we're going to do? And just make sure.
Let me say this too. I don't mean to keep coming.
Oh, no, you're not. I'm just talking too much.
No, you're not. No, you're doing great. The dump, because I talked about this in the entire video the week before the dump caught fire. Now, it's 5 acres of debris. The way it's situated, if the whole dump would have caught on fire, I don't think they would have put it out, because
you can't. They just let them burn. They would have had to evacuate people. In my view, I mean, that would have been unconscionable to leave them there. But there was something like that just recently. I don't know if it was West Virginia. But yeah, I've seen it before. And then just in New Orleans East, there's a horrific traffic situation we have now because of some tires. People were dumping them illegally under an underpass. And the intensity of the heat, this was just this last week, it messed up the structure of the underpass. And so now there's one lane where there should be 3 lanes on a big road. So the city was letting people do nothing about letting people dump all these endless tires. And yeah, it's just a matter of time before they set fire to them. So
yeah, and they would have had to call the National Guard because, oh, this is the point I was trying to make. There's houses on one side, and then so that the houses are, I don't know what direction, but the houses are here. On this side, it's a railroad track. So you can't access it. There's a big hill and there's a bridge.
They're trapped in there.
There's a bridge, and then there's over here is the electric towers.
That sounds horrible. Horrible.
They would have gotten the water on the electric, towers, and nobody would have had electricity anywhere.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
So when you say what kind of plan people have, I think, you should plan for the worst case scenario. If this were to catch on fire, which we see is more common than most people are aware of, will we be able to contain it? I mean, and the fires are actually worse in the colder weather because it's hot down there. But they said when the tire is on fire, the heat inverts.
You're completely correct. Yeah.
And it stays down on the ground level instead of rising. People think because it's smoking that it's rising. No, the heat is staying there. So when in my video, you see them, there's a tractor removing the debris and they're pouring water down because they're trying to get the fire on the ground. So it's and another thing, the animals, the insects and rodents that these dumps attract. Was it your story? You were saying that there were rats and mice.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. And I rescued a frog out of some guy's kitchen because he didn't want to touch it. But yeah, it's horrible because they have nowhere to go, and then they're after the storm, so there are more of them around, and they're like people when they don't know what to do when they lose their home. So everybody's behavior is a little bit different. So you find them where they're not supposed to be, and then they get attracted by the smell for the food and stuff. So there were all kinds of animals, lot more bugs around, apparently mosquitoes and.
I'm saying due to the dump.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, no question. Because they're attracted to the smells,
Okay, well, dirt, that's kind of their habitat. Dirt,
yeah, sure, and they can hide in there and stuff. But is that combination? Yeah, sure.
So Senator Cory Booker, he's trying to. I'm not questioning his motive or intentions. I don't know, but he's kind of speaking out on environmental issues and different things like that. Do you think we will see more of this? I mean, my God, what does it take?
He came down here and he visited Cancer Alley, and which is the stretch of land along the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And I'm covering that area, different communities that are being poisoned by the chemical refineries, the chemical plants and the refineries. And he visited places that are also very bad in Alabama. And I questioned his sincerity, and I think I was just wrong. I was just being too cynical. I think he really cares about that issue. And, if he was feeling out, if he's going to run for president or whatever, great, more power to him, because he showed up. And not enough people are showing up. Like you said, the media didn't come to cover the story. And I wasn't trying to make an excuse. I just laugh about the whole industry of media, being part of it in my own way as an independent. But it's unacceptable. I mean, these stories are the stories of our time, how society is overlooking communities of color and the social economic fabric where poor people can just be poisoned and people look away. This is not okay. So anyone that shows up, they get brownie points in my book. So he showed up, and
I was kind of saying, do you think more, since he's doing it, I'm not saying he's the most influential politician
Yeah,
ever,
right.
but are more? Do you think more are gonna do it? Is this?
Well, I think as the Trump administration destroys the little protection we have, which isn't enough anyway, it's like opening a cut, you know, so you have a little cut and no one's going to care so much about that little cut, but now we have this big open wound. So people like Corey are starting to take a look in there, right? More people will pay attention, and that's a good thing, because it's like right now, you know, when Trump got in, we already had a big wound in any company any community that's located near industry. It's about industry first, and they can say all they want that it's safe, and until you can prove otherwise. What it should be the other way around. They should have to prove that what they're doing is safe. You shouldn't have to prove that it's causing you harm. So it's all reversed. But I'd like to think more people will start paying attention. It's hard to know what's going to happen now, because all bets are off with the moral fabric of our society. Things have just gone so haywire that I'd like to think there can be a positive backlash on, like, the curtain's gone, right? Like, so before, everything's kind of middle of the line. Things are bad, but they're not too bad. But now stuff is so bad you can't not see it anymore, and then someone's pulled the curtain even worse back off. So people wake up a little bit more. It's unfortunate. Sometimes it has to be in your backyard to know it.
Literally.
Yeah. And so, but the thing now is it's in more people's backyards than imaginable. So it's hard to say that's good, you know, right? So I'm saying, like, yeah, I think people are starting to pay more attention. We have someone who wanted to shut the EPA down running the EPA. So, you know, he's putting all his buddies in industry, he's meeting with industry. So, yeah, you're going to see things get worse for a lot of people real fast. It already is happening.
That's okay. I'm going to ask that question because I already had a question, but you saying that makes me think of a new question. But first, I want to say, do you think that well, let me this is what I'm going to say. I want to make a statement. I'm all about the Black community, and because the media doesn't cover a lot of things that I try and cover. However, I cover police stuff, everything, you name it. Environmental issues like environmental racism exist, but pollution is not racist.
Yep, and it doesn't stay in a community. That air moves everywhere, you know.
Yeah, so it's like this literally is something that affects everyone. Like that's not even up for debate. Like, it's gonna affect everyone. You can't put
but you know, it affects everyone, but it impacts generally communities of color more.
Yes,
though it's an economic thing,
yes.
And it's not saying that all Black communities are poor, but it's just that if you're in a place where people aren't necessarily voting and you don't have the power of the pocketbook to buy your politicians, to buy your protection, so they're going to choose you to put the stuff there because you're not going to fight back hard enough. And yeah, the media is not going to cover it and all, but the more you organize, you know, and the more people come together and start paying attention, that's one of the reasons I cover this stuff. Because I see that nothing's happening. After Sandy, I was covering the Rockaways, and sure, other journalists got over there at some point, but I heard stuff like some of the groups were told, don't go over there, it's too dangerous. And I'm like, all right, I'm going over there.
Yeah, that's where you need to go.
yeah, but that's what I'm interested in. And you're spot on. People aren't picking up on these stories, but when I tell them, I get a good review. You found my stuff. So Desmog blog, it's real quality journalism, but not enough people know about that blog. I hate the word blog, but that's what it's a news source. It's an environmental news source. But I show up.
Leave the link in this video so people can check it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when I cover community, I tend to go back. That's the other thing about the media. You know, you get tasked, you show up, you do one story and you're on to the next story. But I'm an independent, so I choose my stories. And once I go and I meet with people, then I want to hear from, well, whether I want to hear from them or not, I often hear from them again.
I did a video. We had a cookout in the backyard. They made barbecue and different things and a whole, you know, all these meals, and they invited the politicians and called them out and, you know, come out for lunch. You say there's nothing wrong. It's the middle of summertime. Come out here in the backyard and eat. Of course, nobody showed up, but I don't know. It's just really a slap in the face. And you were talking about the economics. And this is where maybe you can help me with this. Where does the money come in as far as like the fines? Like, okay, if a site wants to if a site wants to operate and they're like, well, you can operate, but you know, if it's this or, you know, this chemical or this, you got to pay fines.
The fines are just way too low, because here's the thing in general, and this is a huge generalization I'm making, because I'm not talking about a specific dump or whatever, but let's say I'm an industry person, right? And I want to be able to pollute and I want to be able to operate without worrying about stuff. What do? I donate to campaigns. I donate even more money to the political PACs. And then when suddenly there's a storm and I need to have a dump, you know, I'm like, oh, no, you know, I don't like that regulation. That's not right, you know. And then, all right, well, we're not going to make it that hard on you. Or something goes wrong and they investigate, but the investigation takes forever. And then they just write up some kind of warning and nothing happens. Now, why is that? Well, I helped get you elected because I paid. And so that's where the money comes in. So there you are in the community. Maybe your income isn't even high enough to pay taxes. And then, you know, who are you? You all you are is a single vote. You know, you're not making it so I can run that ad so that I can get a whole bunch of votes. So that's where the economics come in.
So what's the solution? Give me a short and long-term solution. What can we do right now?
Well, the only solution I see is something that Bernie Sanders talked about when he got started. And he kept it a message through the whole campaign, but it was his core thing. And you know, he was about a lot of things, but his core thing and how I took it was money out of politics.
Yes.
Until we get money out of politics, basically there's no chance. So
I agree.
All you can do in the meantime is bring attention to issues. You know, and that, you know, for someone, again, and I'm not endorsing Cory Booker, but he showed up. And if we can get these people to show up, like those politicians that didn't show up for that barbecue, I just keep going after them. Because one day, you know, one of them will show up. Let them know, well, we're gonna come and we're gonna write in Mickey Mouse. If you know, we're not gonna vote for you or for, you know, vote people out, get involved. What I have seen since Trump got in office, I'm seeing new people running all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing new people going to meetings that had never been involved before, and then learning the process and being horrified by it, and they're running. It's exciting. You know, that's the one positive thing about the Trump administration is people that didn't pay attention to politics. Now they're like, wait a minute, they're paying attention. But otherwise, I can say it's pretty bleak out there. Things are going in the opposite direction. We're destroying the planet super fast.
It seems like, I don't know, it just seems like all this social media, all of this way to access people, and people are still, it's like they got more deaf and blind. I don't know.
That's also a part of it. There's so much information that if you don't stay focused and you don't pay attention to what's important, I'd say the key is to show up, you know, and every
how
now
do we
and
get
then.
the money out of politics?
Well, that's the only way to fix it. Yeah, I shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't do that, yeah, and but in the meantime, though, just so you don't go crazy and feel like no one cares, when you show up, you see there are people that care. But it's money out of politics, and the more people that start participating in the political system and running, when they never like, okay, you don't like what the mayor's doing, run for office. And I know it's easier said than done because you need money. So, you know, we can all pitch in the way we can. I mean, if there's a new political candidate and I feel like I want to support them, I'll go shoot photos for them so they don't have to come up with that kind of expense and all. There are different ways to get involved. But yeah, that's it. If people don't do that, get involved in some way and push for that money out of politics. This stuff now with the net neutrality is really making me shaking my boots. No one's going to see our video, you know, because they'll put it at the low end of the speed. I don't know how to get people to pay attention. You know, I watched network news last night. I don't do that all the time, but sometimes I watch it more to see what they're covering and what they're not covering than to actually get the news. And there was no mention of the fact that in North Dakota, the regulators gave the Keystone XL the final permit that it needed. Now, this is a story we have all been hearing about for almost a decade, and it wasn't even on the national news. You know, and again, like I said, there are only two stories, and what were the first stories? It was about that sex stuff.
I think there's a trickle down, like the debris and the dust. I'm not trying to get too deep and metaphysical.
No, it's good. Well, we're talking about dumps. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's like the news in the mainstream media is the dump, and the dust from the debris is like it gets in people's minds and it becomes toxic. And Absolutely. It becomes toxic because it influences their behavior, like the way that they think, like because my thing is, who really cares about, I think local elections are way more important.
You're spot on.
And it's like everybody knows Trump's family, his wife, but people don't even know their council members. They don't know what ward or district they're in. And you're like, that's what the news, that's what they want you to do.
Exactly right. It's all a bunch of noise. And it's sad, you know, that, but I mean, it's almost like things have to get worse before they get better, but the planet can't sustain that much more worse. That's the problem right now. So, you know, you're out there, you're paying attention. I don't have a better answer than get money out of politics. And since that doesn't seem to be
there will be a lot more, because nature protects itself in a way, because we're destroying nature, cutting down trees and different things like that. But I think naturally nature protects itself.
As much as it can, you know, there is going to come that point where there's a point of no return with this climate change. People don't want to, things will change, but it doesn't mean that we'll be able to sustain as a human race. Well, I know that sounds pretty extreme.
Well, you might be right, but I'm just simply saying that, like the Venus flytrap, a cactus, thorns on a rose. So I think somehow nature will realizes that we're destroying it, and will use natural disasters to protect itself. Hence all these tornadoes. It was like 100 tornadoes this year or last year. It was like a record of tornadoes. So I think capitalism and materialism will be wiped out by natural disasters as a self-protective mechanism for the earth before it completely, I think that'll be like the last hope. I don't know.
Well, let a new species of animal take over whatever.
Like Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Well, you know, people definitely are not taking care. You know, you can see the whole nature. Places where certain animals were, they're not anymore. They can't sustain because of the climate is changing, so they're moving, and it's just same with people. How much can you endure? It's an interesting time we're living in, and no one should be living next to a dump. No one should be living next to a dump.
And what is the population of that community where that dump is?
Port Arthur. Well, that was a small neighborhood, but maybe 100. That's the other thing. If the smaller it is, less voice the people have. A couple hundred people live back in there, but it doesn't matter. Your home is your castle. You live across the street. If someone sets up a dump, if it needs to be done, okay, but then you need to be compensated like eminent domain. Someone needs to give you. There was nowhere to go. It was after a natural disaster. All the hotels are full, but your health should not be jeopardized for the bigger good. It doesn't make any sense. That's
the dump in this city. It's a suburb of Cleveland, but it's like it's extremely poor. There's thousands of abandoned buildings. Like when people come to a tour of Cleveland, they see East Cleveland. They're like, this looks literally like the Middle East. So I think what you were saying, the smaller and poorer the community is, the harder it is for it to have a voice and create momentum. And
and there are many reasons for that. If you're too busy worrying about how to feed your family, you don't have time to go to that community meeting and go to the council and complain about stuff. And then if you're afraid that there's going to be a backlash, that you're going to lose your job, and so it's there's so many issues with it. So it's really bad. But what you did down there looks beautiful to me, that you got people out, to show up, because that doesn't change the system like we were talking about. You have to get rid of money at a pub, but just showing up for people, at least you give someone some spirit of a fight, even if you can't win. You gotta show up.
No, is the dump still? What did they say? December 8th?
Well, it went away though. No, the one in Port Arthur, they just showed up one day. They cleared all that stuff out like a week after my report. It was a miracle.
Really? So it's gone.
So I'm saying that one is a positive story.
Wow. Okay.
That credit has to go to Hilton Kelly. He's an activist that's been down there. He works with industry to get them to do what they can. He crosses the line and makes them listen and talks to them, and nothing gets by him. So the city knew, or someone figured out, that what they were doing wasn't acceptable anymore.
What did they say what it was, or
nothing?
Any tests?
Nothing. They didn't even tell anyone. They didn't even tell anyone they were taking the dump away. Just one day the trucks came.
That's what happened here. It just closed, and it was like there was never like an official reason why it was closed. It was like the EPA shut it down. They're going to spend $6 million to clean it up.
Well, you can FOIA for the emails. You just read up a little bit on some tricks of FOIAing. But anyone, private citizen can do it. You say that you want all the emails between this date and that date that have to do with the EPA to that company. That's what you want to see. And they have to send them to you, or they have to write you a reason why they're not giving them to you. And then you can find out your answers. That's one approach. Because that would be interesting, because it makes you paranoid. Like they must have found something really bad and they knew they'd get caught, so they moved on. That's one possibility.
And see, what happened was the EPA, they did the same thing they did in Michigan, where they gave the control to the local Michigan people, as far as like the air quality Michigan people. Because the people that are in control of like the people that are in court for the Flint stuff, it's not the EPA, it's the local air quality people.
Right, the state people.
Yeah, what they were trying to do here was they said, well, we gave control to Cleveland Air Quality Division and not the Ohio EPA. So I don't know if that's a common thing or.
Well, what happens is it starts at your state with your state regulators, and the only time the EPA is supposed to step in is if your state is not taking care of you. Then they're supposed to override. So that's how, that's when you call the EPA. And then if the EPA stuff doesn't work for you, then you can always call in the Attorney General, because if a community is being poisoned and it seems like it's environmental racism, you call the Attorney General.
Yeah, they showed up and they got some stuff. So I don't know.
Well, good for you. Well, let me know. Well, how that's all cleared out now?
No. Well, see, oh man, so I'm gonna wrap it up soon. I know you gotta go, but they closed it in January. They said it would take 100 days. So they started working on it because I've been filming the 100 days, making sure the process went correct. So they started the third week of the third week of July cleaning it. And they were not even cleaning it properly because they were, and I have it on camera, the tarps weren't covered. And I put that video out, but on the dump trucks, the tarps weren't covered, but they're supposed to spray the debris before they put it in, and they weren't spraying the debris. And I'm on, one of the residents' garage, and I'm filming. I'm like, they're not even spraying it. Then they see me, and then there's a guy with the water hose out of nowhere, and he starts spraying it. So it was like just during the whole 100 days, the residents' drains started clogging up.
Oh no.
And but it's been over 100 days. Now they're saying that the springtime or something, but they said it would take 100 days. So that's going to be more millions of dollars to clean it up. So,
and do you know where they're taking this stuff?
Yeah, it's like, there's a landfill. It's like near Independence, Ohio. Yeah.
So it's somewhere away from people?
Yeah. It's probably where it should have been in the first place.
Well, one thing you can try to do is make sure with the mayor and the city council that they demand that their testing done when it's finished, that they check the soil and they check the air and they monitor that. But sure, the air should be monitored while they're moving it around if they're not protecting the dust as they're moving it, like you said. But
my video from last year, I said, even if you don't think the debris is toxic, the fact that there's a railroad track right there, the smoke from the railroad is a carcinogen, and the diesel fuel exhaust from not only the vehicles coming in, but the off-road vehicles that do the work, it's like a holocaust of diesel fuel exhaust in one area.
Yeah. Well, and also dust is problematic always, and then you don't particulate dust.
Particulate matter, yeah.
Yeah, you have to know what's in that stuff. So, people who live nearby, they have to change the filters in their house, in their air conditioning, and in their washer and dryer. The dust gets all through your house. So people have to think to do that, because people forget to do that. You have to do it a lot more if there's an issue with that. But anyway, I look forward to following your work on that.
As well, yes.
Keep the pressure on. Filming is the thing to do with everything. From that though.
Yeah.
But yeah, any time, and I hope you are able to contact the community leaders. Gary Chambers that I mentioned up in Baton Rouge. He can tell you more, and I can give you more contacts of the people that live there. Check in with them from time to time. So in Port Arthur, that community, they won. But in Baton Rouge, there's one community near the dump in Allison that dump is always there, and it shouldn't be. That's all. And then they got it even worse after the 1,000-year flood. I can put you in touch with some of the people there. Same issues, but they didn't have a fire. That's too much.
What is the benefit of? Yeah, they didn't have fires. See, what is the benefit of it being in the inner city? That's my last question.
Well, again, you'd have to look at somebody's financials. It's like what land they had. There is no benefit for the people, that's for sure. There should be zoning rules, and that's the thing with city councils and sometimes if they're getting some kind of kickback or something, they say yes. But who said yes? That was a dump there, and then the people built the houses around.
The council voted for it because they thought it would be a job opportunity for it's a poor community.
Oh, come on.
And they said it was going to be a recycling site.
Well, a recycling site isn't safe anyway, but jobs, how many jobs happen at a dump?
I interviewed one of the workers. He, kept his identity. But
what did he say? How many jobs?
It was only a handful of people that worked there. He said it wasn't worth it. They didn't wear the protective gear, and he said, we were all in agreements. Like this. Well,
one thing you can tell him, like you and I, we can witness that the workers aren't getting the right equipment. But the only people that can call OSHA, the government agency that's supposed to protect workers, are the workers themselves. So. He can call OSHA. I think they're supposed to protect his identity. He can ask them on the phone. But if workers complain, action will be taken, supposedly. But yeah, witnessing it, and is trying to step up for them.
He lives in the community. So that's the thing with this. The people that set up this stuff, they take advantage of the people, and then they're like, well, people are going to work there because they need the money, and then they know it's going to harm the community, but they know people are going to.
Well, whoever chose to put that there, that for jobs, that's not correct. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could have put something there for jobs that wouldn't poison people. It's just unconscionable to me. Jobs versus poisoning your community, it's a no-brainer. You don't poison your community for a couple of jobs. Where's the person who gets sick from that? The child who grows up with asthma and their whole life they're stunted because they're breathing stuff their body can't handle, or an old person that gets pneumonia that shouldn't have because their immune system's worn down. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it all comes back to money. That's the only answer I have. Why someone would locate, and then the council people, they just have to be held accountable for making those decisions. The zoning stuff, I think it's more about money. And no one could really tell you that there going to be a dozen jobs. I'm just guessing. I don't know that dump.
Probably. That's
how is that economically viable to poison a community so 12 people can get jobs? Doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah. So I don't have any answers, but what you're doing is real important to at least pay attention. That's the first step, and I hope more people do and keep up the good work.
Well, as well, I'm just trying to. It's not an isolated incident. Like it's I don't know. You can't think about it too much because it just makes you wonder, like, what the heck is going on with people,
But you can. That's the thing. You can be like me. That's all I think about. I'm a Debbie Downer at a dinner party. I can tell you that. You don't want to get me going.
Okay.
Yeah, you can stay focused on that.
Okay.
But so people won't invite you for dinner.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. And what is usually the outcome for these situations? Do they just? I mean, I know it depends, but do they just?
Usually people just get poisoned. They lose.
Nothing happens. There's no repercussions.
No, maybe a company will get a little slap on the wrist and a little fine. After Katrina, some companies got tiny fines in New Orleans, as far as I know. There are lawsuits, and sometimes a lawyer can make some money. But the best solution, I mean, ending was Port Arthur that I ever saw, the community pressure. So doing what you're doing, standing up and speaking out, it can work, because people aren't even used to it. Like you said, most people don't pay attention. You scoured the internet and you found me. I mean, what, that's, no one's writing this. It's not that I'm so important. So just to start paying attention, and that's all you can do, because it's bad. No one, boy, I mean, forget about the chemicals for a minute, just the noise that the people have to live with.
Yeah, it's the same thing as Port Arthur, 7 in the morning. They dealt with it for like 2 years.
In Baton Rouge, it's 24/7. It's not even. It's not, yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
And that nurse you interviewed, she worked third shift.
She worked the night shift, so when she come, yeah, so she had all this. She couldn't even sleep in the day. She was just going crazy. You know, that was just horrible. But she knew better. You couldn't tell her that it was healthy or safe. She knew it wasn't, and her daughter got sick right away. Her daughter was already asthmatic. So, you know, but it was a fluke. Well, it isn't a fluke. Kelly, he's someone to reckon with. You know, he's been fighting for decades, and people listen to him now. You know, and so you have a voice and keep on it. And you know, you can't solve the whole world problem, but you can change little things in your community if you keep the pressure up. So. On the one hand, I'll say something negative about we're ruining the whole planet, but on the other, you can try to protect your neighbors. And like you said, the local stuff is key. It's absolutely key is what I'm finding. Because if you don't say anything, the bigger picture people definitely aren't going to protect you or say anything. And yeah, we need more people like Corey to pay attention and to bring a focus. Like you said, pollution, it's against everybody. And now with the EPA going so far backwards, it doesn't matter if you're rich and white, you're still going to get polluted. You know?
Really, besides Trump, the biggest story last year was Flint and the pipeline. And those are environmental issues. Those were the biggest stories.
There was a shift in the consciousness of our society. People started paying attention, and it hasn't gone away, even though there's a lot of dust floating around, like you said, from the media. And now all the distraction with and you know, the whole sexual abuse and men using their power. Like, this is very, very important. But now we're already seeing that conversation get diluted and convoluted, and you know, now it's like it could become a political witch hunt. People have to take care not to, you know, yeah, you always have to listen to the victim hardcore, but that makes people vulnerable for an attack. So I just question authority and question everything. You know, that's show up. Like, the only way to know is to be out there. And you know, when you watch the news, when you read the news, see if someone else wrote about it, if they have another angle. The scariest thing I'm seeing in the media is people just re-report other people's stories. So if the first person got a mistake, the next one is. So you can kind of figure out if somebody showed up. You know, look at the photo credit. Did someone actually go and film it? That's why someone like you, I would trust what you're reporting, because you were there.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you know the facts, but at least you know the smell. You know, you met the people. You've got part of the story.
Yeah, let me say this. Man, I keep saying I'm going to go and I keep talking. I'm sorry. Let me say this. The Facebook killer. Do you remember that story?
No, I don't.
There was a guy earlier this year in June. He went and killed someone on Facebook Live.
Are you sure that wasn't a TV show? Did that really happen already?
This was in Cleveland. It was the biggest story in the world.
Wow. I wonder what I was doing. You know, sometimes
I don't know what you were doing.
Something, I just pay attention to what I'm working on.
But yeah, he killed someone, and he said, I'm about to kill somebody else, and I may have killed about 10 people already. Whoa. And the city went on lockdown. This was on CNN like 30 minutes after it happened. Like, it was the biggest story. They found him, he killed himself, or they shot him in Pennsylvania like 3 days later. But every day it was like, where is he at? What's going on? How come the police didn't catch him?
You know what? I must have seen something about it, and it just didn't stick. The dust didn't stick in my head because,
the point I'm trying to say is, I went there. We went to the scene where it happened, where he was shot. We talked to the people. We talked to the house that he left, because he was just walking, collecting some cans or something. And he was just shot for no reason, literally no reason at all. And we spoke to all these people. We went there. I put the video out, and people were saying that it's a conspiracy and the blood was shot, the blood splattered like this. So how is he dead? And he was laying like this. You're not supposed to lay like that. I'm like, just because you watched a couple episodes of CSI or something, like I was there. I talked to people who heard it happen,
right?
who heard. So how are you more credible than me? And I was there. I went there.
Being there counts for a lot in my book. That is for sure. Yeah, and people that need to look at that.
And the internet, it makes people think that everything is a conspiracy, and I'm a conspiracy person. But this opened my mind up to like, wow, everything isn't a conspiracy. But people, they don't even want to believe that it's not a conspiracy. They want to believe the conspiracy, even if it's not there. So I don't know.
It's hard to get at the truth. There's no question about it. It's hard to get at the truth. So I mean, it's best to report on things that you go in person, you cover, and you do your little digging, but always keep your eyes open, question as much as you can, and there can be a conspiracy. But these people, some of that stuff is just thrown out there to muddy the picture. I mean, we've seen that with the last election. We have the Russians putting all this garbage out there.
Yeah.
You got all the motivations. It's too bad people don't ask more questions. It's much easier if you don't ask questions, that's for sure. Everything's easy. Take that hard route.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said take the hard route. Use your brain. Yeah, but you can't use your brain if you're living next to a dump, man. You just go crazy. All the noise, the bad smells.
Wow.
Yeah. That's I feel for people that have to deal with that, and who knows what they breathed in, but it sounds like it's moving in the direction to get it all out of there. So that's a miracle right there. So I look forward to hearing how that thing wraps up. You'll have to keep me posted.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be posted on this channel. So do you have any last words or anything you want to say?
No, just okay. I'm impressed with your work. You found me. I checked out your video. I found it really great that you're covering that. Because my first thing when I see something like that is, how come I didn't know?
Oh yeah.
And it's a big country. It's a big world. But like you said, the issues are similar, and people need to check in, and that is the positive thing about the
that's the main reason I contacted you, because I feel like I said, I covered injustice, police stuff, the typical stuff or whatever, but it's like we don't, even the Black community, and when it's happening in our community, for some reason we just don't get it. And I don't, we can't expect other people to say things if we're not saying things. So if I try and show people different examples, it's happening here, and here's an example where the people stood up and got something done, maybe people will see the situation better and differently.
Well, I hope you can reach out to Hilton Kelly. He
said call him Monday. I reached out to him.
Oh, okay. See, because that was funny for me. You reached out to me, and I like to say yes. I want to share what I know. But my first thought, this is my closing thoughts to you, is, well, I'm no expert, and you introduced me as an expert.
Well, I reached out to him, I tried through Facebook or something, but that half people don't really get that stuff. So I didn't have it. I didn't know how to get his email.
No. Well, but what I was getting at is I wanted to make sure you talk to someone who's living it. I was a visitor, and I pay attention to details. But since I don't live there, I think he's gonna be able to really dig in and tell you the real story. Get the observed story from me. But he's really doing a great job for people on a local level, and he gets out internationally, not even just locally, and nationally. So he'll be able to give you some insight for sure. But yeah, he feels the same way, and he gets frustrated. He'll have an event and people don't show up. It's hard. You just have to keep on and not worry too much about that, because the bigger picture, just raising awareness with a few, you help people. You do what you have to do, but yeah, to not pay attention at all, I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So,
yeah. All right.
Well, to conclude this video, thanks for your time and everything. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late and stuff, so I appreciate you taking time out your day.
I don't know. I live in the South. There's no, you have to be hours late to be late.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye. Good night.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.